The World Warrior program, I would say that it has been a success up to this point. Now, in December, we have 26 tournaments that are going to grant us Capcom Cup champions in 1 month alone. This will be the most action-packed and eventful and high-stakes month of Street Fighter that we've seen in, I don't know, an extremely long time. And all of these regions have delivered up to this point. And I just want to talk about a few of the most interesting things that we've seen up to this point, Brian.
I do have to contend with your last point there. I don't think this is one of the most high stakes moments of time in Street Fighter V. I think this is the highest stakes month of Street Fighter V coming up. We're having how many? 26 qualifiers for Capcom Cup in the span of a month? That has never happened before in the history of Street Fighter. So all these World Warrior event regional finals are going to matter. But over the course of all these events and all these regions, we definitely learned a lot of things. So I figured we're going to highlight what surprised us from this World Warrior event, because it helped shine a light on a lot of regions. And then maybe, what it confirmed that we already knew. So I think the first point I want to bring up is, the young people are winning in Japan. A lot of the big World Warrior events were actually won by much younger
Brian, don't make us sound
who,
so old. Talk about the young people are winning.
I mean, let's face it,
we got
Rob,
a couple years left, man.
People like Eden Walker are pushing us out, including the players in Japan, Higuchi, Shudo, John Takeuchi. They're relatively on the younger side, 20s and the early 20s. And they're the ones actually winning a lot of these World Warrior events. Now, Tokido just recently won the 4th Japanese event to say, hey, hold on, the old guard here, we still got it. But it was pretty surprising looking at those results. If you actually went through them, you would look for people like Daigo, Tokido previously, Fudo, Mago, Sako, you name it, you'd be looking for their names and you'd have to scroll a while to see that they weren't even making the top 8s originally, but the first place finishes were all going to young players. So it was very interesting to see the new guard kind of rise up here and take a lot of the wins in Japan.
And something that you've brought up a whole lot, you made sure to champion this region, France. I think they've put the world on notice throughout this World Warrior program, throughout this CPT season in general. We've seen what happened when they've gone online. Freya Wanmei over there, Val Master just now making it to grand finals. Of course, Mr. Crimson, who has been in the the best player conversation, I would say, at least top 5 in the world right now. So the talent pool is just so dense there and so rich that I definitely don't think that people were looking at France as being to this level.
Killzoo is in 5th place, Luffy's in 3rd. So who's filling up the rest of the spots, right? Val Master has recently taken the throne again as the king of France, while Mr. Crimson is kind of chilling in the background, letting you guys have fun for a bit. But, Valmaster, we saw it's not just these World Warrior events. UFA, he actually got 2nd place, taking sets over players like Punk, only losing to, of course, Ending Walker, who's beating everybody right now. But it was actually really interesting to see. So it's not really the results you might expect, and I think that shows the power scaling of the region, right? We know how much of a force players like Luffy are, and to see that they're not in the first place spot in a region where you might assume it would be free, this goes to show the depth of talent in the France region. And
Endon Walker definitely is one of the main stories. That's the main story of the World Warrior program and the hottest story in Street Fighter right now. We didn't know about this kid, man. Not to this point. We've known of him.
We heard the rumors to a degree before this season, but not.
I remember him playing. I remember him beating Hurricane. Was that this year or last year? I thought that was last year. Him beating Hurricane.
Last year CPT.
Yeah, and that was a big thing. I'm like, oh, this kid is nice, right? He would be in my streams and whatnot, and I see them cooking up. I'm like, wow. But in no way, shape, I'm not about to be like LeBron right now, bro. Hey, you know what I mean? I'm keeping it a buck. I did not see any of this coming, just like everybody else. And he's shown us this year just how elite that he is. It can't be argued. I've never seen anything like this ever. As far as Street Fighter, this is the first time where I think I've seen someone just go from online to offline, and just your first offline events are these super big majors, and then you go to UFA and immediately you go and get first place
against the best in the world, some of the best in the world. Easy. No arguing it. That run is undisputed. You cannot argue against that run. So that was definitely the biggest surprise, I think. We knew he was good and he was on the come up, but just to be that dominant for that long, not just the 5 World Warrior events in a row, there was also the Salt Mine Leagues and the other all-night tournaments. It was 11 or 12 tournaments in a row that he won. Then he finally took an L, and then he still bounced back and kept winning. So that's a big storyline leading into the regional finals because he did not win the CPT events, but he still needs to win the regional final to get to the Capcom Cup. So all bias, I think we both have the full bias here. We're rooting for ending Walker just because the story is too good. I want to see the success. But another really interesting storyline here is the NA East bloodbath leading into the CPT event. We won't go into too much detail because we've harped on this to no end, but the fact that NA East has Punk, Idom, NuckleDu, and the players like Kudo, NYC Furby, and tons of other killers in that bracket who have not qualified for Capcom Cup and are competing in the CPT event today to qualify, and then still have the regional final to qualify. I just feel like that region is surprising because it does not seem like we would have called this. Like normally, I think at the start of the year, it was Punk and Idom. Then suddenly Kudo shows up like, hey, how's it going? You guys want to play some Street Fighter? And starts beating everybody. And we're like, oh, okay, wait a minute. There's another player on the block. And then suddenly NuckleDu is like, hey, remember me?
Out of nowhere.
So this, I think this region went from the two favorites to people trying to overcome that challenge to suddenly blown wide open where nobody knows who's going to qualify. So that was a huge surprise for the season that developed over the World Warrior program.
And there's been some interesting character developments throughout the World Warrior program too. When we look at Fong, for example, Garnett over there in Europe West sitting up there in first place. Of course, Vega Patch is cooking up as well. Mono, he's not in first place in his region, but he is in top 8, and we've just seen how he's done over the course of this year in general. We didn't know we'd see so much amazing thing play throughout this year.
And also Mortzy, Canada West, second place, right? So this Fong has actually been in a lot of regions in the either in the top 8 or in the first or second place position in a lot of these regions. So is his character still underrepresented? I don't know. He's actually popping up.
It's tough to
kind
call.
of all over the world.
And of course, you got to bring Ed up. We already talked about Endon Walker. You got to also bring up Ajax Fidelity. Mm-hmm. You know, Ajax is cooking up over there in Central America East.
Horace Pollen is ranked number 1 in Brazil currently with Ed as well. So we have 2 regions where Ed is in first place and Ajax Fidelity in second in another region. So I think before this World Warrior program, if you would have talked about the characters you expect to see in a competitive environment, Ed would have been far down that list. I don't think he would have been brought up at all for most people in the know 2021, just looking to the future of Street Fighter V. But he's actually popping up all over right now. So we really got to see his strengths shine in this World Warrior program. And another big one, because people were bemoaning the death of this character. And I think this is an interesting development.
I know I was.
I think this is an interesting development. Urien is actually still kicking. He's still around and taking wins in the most stacked region in the world, Japan. So Shudo and Tokido have both taken World Warrior wins with Urien. Tokido also uses Luke, so it's not every matchup is using Urien, but Shudo, Urien specialist through and through. So it's interesting to see that the character's still around, and I know we're going to get some people, getting some salty tweets from Rushdown or something saying, oh, he's a specialist character, People aren't going to drop him just because he got nerfed a bit, but yeah, he's still around. So it's interesting to see that, you can adjust the character heavily, but those who are dedicated and put the work in can still get wins in the objectively hardest region to get a win in the World Warrior event in Japan.
So yeah, Urian's still doing his thing, and I was not expecting that whatsoever. Now, for some stuff that we were expecting, we have, let's look at the confirmations that we've got from the World Warrior program. For example, Phenom being untouched, unmatched, un-F-withable over there in Nordic Baltic. I mean, this dude's been dominating that region for a while. Reichmus Barnett, I would say, has done a good job. At least he beat him in the one CPT event, and he's done a good job of challenging him.
Yeah, he's motivating him at least.
But in the end of the day, Phenom is still the guy over there in that region.
Right. And, it all just kind of fell in place for Phenom, so not too much to dispute about that. Another one, we were looking for his downfall for so long, not because we are preying on his personal downfall, just to see things shaken up. Our guy Travis Styles, dude, you're doing too good. Travis Styles has been smoking the competition in Australia. I think he won every single World Warrior event or close to it, and also qualified for the CPT event. So he's just, any opportunity you're giving the guy, he's just taking the W without too much competition. And we were concerned about that from the beginning, given his performance in 2021. And unfortunately, he confirmed that he is that guy. And we will be seeing how that guy performs in Capcom Cup. So, shout out to Travis Styles. Keep up the domination, and hopefully we can see some more competition soon.
A player that's not shutting up anytime soon, my man's Chris CCH came on to No Neutral at the beginning of this season, before the first ever World Warrior event, or maybe after the first one. But either way, he said that he's going to win every single one of them, and he's going to dominate. He kept his word on one of those things and almost kept his word on the other. He did not win every CPT World Warrior event, but he did win most of them, meaning he's confirmed that he is quite possibly the strongest player in the West Coast. But of course, Samurai is the one who qualified through CPT, so it's not really fair to judge Samurai's CPT World Warrior results because he could be practicing and training. But Chris ECH is at least in the conversation. He's top 2 minimum in that region, and I would guess and put my money on him being number 1.
Yeah, I can see it confirmed our knowledge of his consistency in the region. But like you mentioned, Samurai's not entering these events, so could Samurai potentially cause an upset and beat him? Because before this, I think we were shocked to see that Chris ECH didn't win. Not because Samurai's not great, because Chris has won so many WNFs. Like, he's winning every online tournament for free almost at that point in time in the beginning of the season, but then Samurai takes it. So yeah, Chris, I think he had a bit of a chip on his shoulder due to that 1L. But that said, that's the World Warrior wrap up for this season. We learned a lot about all these regions all over the world through this program. It's a lot of amazing Street Fighter V action. So shout out to all the players for participating in this event and putting on a good show for people all over the world. And we can't wait to see who is going to qualify for the Capcom Cup. We got 26 spots available. There's going to be so much action over the next month, and we're going to be watching all these events to see who makes it into the cup to fight for that big prize.